Here we go. Snap, hold, kick, trying to get there. It is good! It's good! It's good!
Here's the snap. It's good. The hold is good. The kick is up. The kick is good, and Arkadelphia wins it. Arkadelphia 21, Fairview 20.
Big running room. Lots of green again. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bingo! Jackpot! Promised land! Touchdown, Ouachita!
With the football, looks to the sideline, throws to the end zone, high in the air. That's a catch. That's a touchdown. Arkadelphia on the board again.
Not many broadcasting partners can say they grew up in the same city, much less on the same block. But this is the case for the Ouachita Football Network's Rex Nelson and Jeff Root, best friends who grew up together in the small college town of Arkadelphia, Arkansas.
You know, I've known Jeff Root as long as I can remember. The Roots were the folks who lived in the house down the street, he and his brother Larry.
Rex and I grew up in the same neighborhood, just about a block from the A.U. Williams football field, which is now, of course, Cliff Harris Stadium. So we were in the same neighborhood, about the same age. He's about a year older than I am. But our family lived there for a period of time, moved away, and then came back. So we didn't know each other all the way through our childhoods, but by the time we got to about upper elementary or junior high, we knew each other well and spent time together. And so we've been friends for a long, long time. And of course, that was really heightened when we both in high school got into radio.
Jeff Root is the son of two teachers. His father, Paul Root, was a professor at Ouachita. During his childhood, Jeff received an introduction to radio through one of his father's passion projects.
My father got involved with a couple of other Ouachita professors. Dad got involved with an English professor named Gilbert Morris in putting together a radio show. This was an old-fashioned situation comedy radio show, and they wrote many, many scripts. They also brought in a friend of theirs very quickly after the show started. His name is Francis Macbeth, and Macbeth, of course, is a world-renowned composer of band music. But he's also a guy who just loved to write comedy, and so he wrote a lot of scripts also. And between the three of them, they put together a show. My uncle was a comedic figure in the show also. The show is called Sam and Jesse.
It's time now for another day in the life of Sam and Jesse, Gum Springs, Arkansas.
It was on about 9 radio stations in Arkadelphia. They weren't really doing it for the purpose of hitting it big, because after all, they were about 30 years after situation comedies left radio, but they were doing it because it reminded them of their childhood shows that they listened to, and so they were anxious to do something really for the enjoyment and the fun of it. I would sometimes go to the radio station and just watch them record, and I found it to be just kind of a magical place. And so I thought if I ever had a chance to work at a radio station in any capacity, I would take up the offer to do that, the opportunity to do that. And lo and behold, shortly after that, my friend Rex Nelson landed a job as a disc jockey at that same radio station. And so that led me to wonder if maybe at some point I could have that same kind of position. And so several months after he started, and then I had a chance to start also. So before Rex and I got together for sports, we were both disc jockeys, enjoyed playing mostly country music, and we were doing it the old-fashioned way with 45 records and spinning them on turntables.
Rex Nelson found his way to media through his own family's deep ties to Ouachita.
My mom and dad both went to Ouachita. My dad came first in 1942. He left Benton, Arkansas, and came to Ouachita to play football. In those days, he had grown up in the Depression, and everything that he had to bring to Ouachita fit in a pillowcase. And he brought that when the coach came to pick him up, and he met the people in the football dorm that would be his best friends for life.
Most of the parents in Ouachita Hills, at least the fathers, were on the faculty at Ouachita, as was Jeff and Larry's dad. My dad was kind of different in that respect. He was a downtown businessman, had Southwest Sporting Goods in Arkadelphia. Well, I guess I came by sports naturally because everybody I knew growing up was coach this or coach that. My dad had started before I was born as a coach. He was head football coach at Newport High School, his first job after graduating from Ouachita in 1948. By the time I was born, he had already lived in Arkadelphia. He and my mom, for several years, Southwest Sporting Goods, sold athletic supplies all over the state. So Dad would travel the state. I loved traveling with him when I was young. But a lot of times when I was in school, he would drop me off on a Monday morning at school, and I wouldn't see him again till Friday afternoon because he would be out staying in motels and traveling the state. But I would go to coaches' clinics with him. So just that natural love for sports, that's what we did in our family. I collected newspapers as a child. I remember my parents saying, why can't you collect coins or stamps like the other kids? They don't take up so much room. I mean, my parents' attic in Arkadelphia was the biggest fire trap in the south half of the state because it had all of my old newspapers up there. And my mother ended up framing a thing I did in the first grade. Showed a guy at an anchor desk, believe it or not, with a microphone in front of him. And on the wall behind him, I had written ABC News. And it was one of these, what do you want to be? Well, I didn't want to be a fireman. I didn't want to be a astronaut, like a lot of kids that age. I wanted to be a reporter. So it was just something I've always wanted to do. So that combination of a love of sports and my love of media obviously melded into sports media by the time I was in high school.
During his freshman year of college, Rex got the chance to break into live sports radio at his station.
The owner's son was doing the play-by-play for Badger football when I played. So the owner told me, look, you and Ron are going to do the games together. So I was very excited that I was going to get to be the color man just a year after having played on those broadcasts. Well, just a few weeks before the season started, the play-by-play man got into an argument with his stepmother, the way I understood it, and left the station. And so the owner comes to me and said, look, he's not with us anymore. You know all the Arkadelphia kids. You think you can do play-by-play? Well, I was very excited. So I started Arkadelphia High School play-by-play the season after I had actually played. So I went directly from the field to the play-by-play job for Arkadelphia High School.
That same year, Rex was asked to do play-by-play for Ouachita football. The circumstances behind this opportunity were no less unique.
Now, I was also going to be the Ouachita color man that year. And the guy that was doing play-by-play at the time, Glenn Hoggard, was a Ouachita graduate. Glenn was working for a company called Ward Bus Company, which sold school buses all over the world. And they had cut a big deal with the Saudi government to sell buses to the Saudi government to take Muslim pilgrims to Mecca. And the phone rings one morning in the dorm. We only had one phone on the hall back then. Somebody screams at me, says it's for you. I can remember going to answer the phone, and the phone's very scratchy, and it's Glenn Hoggard, and said, I'm not going to make it to tonight's game at Arkansas Tech. And I said, what's up? Where are you? He said, I'm in Saudi Arabia. And I said, what? He said, I'm over here working on a bus deal. I'm not going to make it back for tonight's game. Well, he didn't make it back for any more games. So by the middle of my freshman year of college, I wasn't only doing the high school play-by-play, I was actually doing the Ouachita play-by-play, which I picked up and carried on through the rest of the season.
Though Rex was already on the air, Jeff would have to wait to join his best friend on football broadcasts.
I had planned to do some radio work on behalf of Ouachita, but because my father had applied for a frequency to be applied to Gurdon, because he was hoping to own a radio station in Gurdon, I didn't keep my job at the radio station. I couldn't do things for Ouachita at the Arkadelphia radio station. That didn't last very long, but it was in that period of time.
So Jeff engineered stuff. He kept all the stats, kept play-by-play, which he still does for me to this day. And yet, for a couple of seasons there, at least one, maybe two, He couldn't talk on the air, and we couldn't give his name because we were afraid that the owners would hear. So he was part of the crew, but we could never mention his name on the air. Now, how weird is that? But that's small-town radio for you.
During this waiting period, Jeff focused his efforts on Ouachita's print media. Doing so led him to a once-in-a-lifetime encounter.
My sophomore year, I was just about to become the editor. I became editor at the Christmas break during my sophomore year. And so I was working very hard to catch up because I hadn't been in journalism for very long, and I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing. I had some great students to learn from, and also had a great teacher in Bill Downs. But we also went to a national conference that fall. The conference was in Chicago, and so I was very excited about going. Never been to Chicago before. I hadn't traveled all that much. We had a signal to do. The conference was going to start on a Thursday in Chicago. We had a signal to produce on that Wednesday night, and so being the person who was kind of about to be the editor, I felt like I needed to stay for that. So I think there were about 7 of us that went, 7 students. We all stayed until the signal was done at 8 o'clock, and then we would be ready to go and head for Chicago. We figured, we're going to spend the night somewhere and then finish the drive the next day. And we figured that Bill would be the one driving us. But Bill, unbeknownst to us, had a conference to teach on Thursday morning in Chicago. So Bill came to me during the day, on that Wednesday, and he handed me the keys to the van and said, I'm about to go catch a plane. You and somebody else, whoever you choose, you guys drive to Chicago and I'll see you there tomorrow. I just helped load up the van and we took off, and it was a wonderful trip, a lot of fun, but it was also an overnight trip. We left at 8 in the evening, we got to Chicago at 8 the next morning, and I was driving on the late shift because I was actually 19 and the other driver was 18 years old. And so Deborah Holly, who is the editor of the yearbook and a senior, who I had seen and I had been introduced to by Max Sisson, who is the assistant to Bill Downs and a fantastic person. He introduced us, but we hadn't really had a conversation. So when everybody else went to sleep, Deborah came up to the passenger side. I thought maybe, there's some level of interest there. Instead, I'm thinking now probably she just thought I'd fall asleep and kill everybody, so she wanted to just keep me awake by having conversation.
I'm the kind of person that if you're driving at night, I want to make sure that the driver is awake and alert, and so everybody seemed to be going to sleep. So I jumped in the passenger seat up front to keep Jeff awake while he was driving, and so that's kind of how we met and how we started talking to each other, and we've been married 41 years, so 41 plus probably 2 to 3 years on top of that.
He thought that you thought that he was a little bit cute. Is there any?
Yeah. I can agree with that.
Jeff eventually did make his way to the mic on the football broadcast, where he worked beside Rex even after graduation. In a few years' time, however, Rex left for Washington, D.C. as a correspondent for the Arkansas Democrat. Root took over Rex's play-by-play jobs at both Arkadelphia and Ouachita, and he still serves as the voice of the Badgers today. Still, Tiger football games never felt the same without his longtime broadcast partner. This feeling became especially obvious when Nelson attended a game on a return trip from Washington.
As I was hearing him, and I'm calling the game in a booth next door to where he is in the main box, but I can hear him, I'm thinking, man, if he ever moves back, we got to get back on the air together. So when he came back, I quickly said, if you can make it fit your schedule, let's get the old crew back together again and do what we used to do. And so that's what we did. And then, of course, after that, I left again for graduate school, but luckily he had saved a chair for me when I came back.
Jeff and I have been working together on and off for more than 40 years now. We have been working together continuously now on Ouachita broadcast for more than 30 years. I call it my fall family, but it's like a family too. We stay in touch year round too. But we certainly love the fall because that means we get to spend Saturdays together.
The special nature of Rex and Jeff's friendship is not lost on those close to them.
I don't know of a stronger friendship than between Jeff and Rex because of all of these memories that they've shared through the years.
As much as Rex and Jeff love broadcasting Ouachita football games, I think they more so enjoy broadcasting Ouachita football games together. Anybody who's in this loves doing a broadcast, but it means a whole lot more when you have a broadcast partner that you know is enjoying that with you?
Rex and Jeff celebrate their differences, but they are better together. And they can almost finish each other's sentences, and they respect each other so much and have so much fun. I mean, plan on laughing when you're with both of them. But it is just a very, very special friendship that was born out of that Ouachita circle.
Rex and Root are grateful for the chance to work together. At the same time, they hope their bond leaves a positive impact on their audience.
I hope people realize, and I think it's mentioned on the air from time to time, that friendship means a lot. And, one of the reasons that I'm motivated to do a good job is that it's because I'm doing it for him, as well as for me, as well as for the Ouachita Tigers. I want to help him make the broadcast as good as he believes it can be. And I want to do it because I want to be good at what I do, but I also want to be part of a team.
I think if people say, that guy loved Ouachita, his broadcasts were informative, but they were also fun, and whether we went to Ouachita or not, we enjoyed listening to them. And if they said that, that would be the greatest broadcast compliment that I could really get, that we listened to Ouachita football because we enjoyed listening to the rapport between you guys on the air. Thank you for listening, and thank you for, again, having as much fun as we're having, because I can assure you it's fun for us on our end of the line, and once more, I hope it's fun for you on the other end of the line as you listen to it.
This is Jeff Root. Good night, everybody. And Abby, Daddy's on his way home.